When you walk away first, your silence becomes the lesson. Your distance reveals your worth, your strength, and the truth she ignored. She returns because the world doesn't offer what your presence did. Walking away isn't losing her, it's choosing yourself. And that choice pulls her back every time. Walking away is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect a person can demonstrate, yet it is often misunderstood. People think walking away means giving up, losing, or admitting defeat. But in reality, walking away is a declaration of inner worth. It is the courageous decision to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and dignity over desperation. When you walk away, you're not running from anything, you are returning to yourself. You are stepping out of a space where your value was overlooked, your presence was taken for granted, or your efforts went unrecognized. And that quiet decision, that calm withdrawal, speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. There is a strength in silence that words simply cannot match. Silence doesn't argue, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it reflects. And in that reflection, the other person sees what they failed to appreciate. When you walk away without anger, without a scene, without trying to prove anything, you send the clearest message of all. I know my worth even if you don't. This kind of self-respect has a frequency. It is felt, it is remembered, it is impossible to ignore. Not because you're trying to get anyone's attention, but because you've reclaimed your own. Walking away shifts the balance. It breaks patterns. It disrupts expectations. Most people are used to being pursued, explained to, or convinced. They expect you to stay even when staying hurts you. They count on your patience, your loyalty, your softness. But when you choose yourself over someone's inconsistent behavior, it forces a moment of realization they can't escape. Suddenly, your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own actions back to them. Suddenly, they feel the weight of what they pushed away. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need validation, applause, or justification. It is quiet confidence. It is the ability to say, I deserve better, and actually walk toward that better. There is profound power in refusing to give energy to what drains you. When you step back, you give yourself room to breathe, to heal, to realign, and to remember who you are without the noise of someone else's confusion. In that space, your standards rise, your perspective sharpens, and your emotional strength grows. Others often realize your value only after they experience your absence. And while that realization might bring them back, the truth is, you didn't walk away to teach them a lesson. You walked away to protect your soul. That's what makes it so impactful. You weren't playing games. You weren't manipulating. You were honoring yourself. And self-respect, when practiced consistently, becomes magnetic. People feel the difference between someone who stays out of fear of losing another person and someone who walks away out of love for themselves. Walking away is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of self-worth becoming non-negotiable. It is the moment you decide that your peace matters more than someone's temporary presence, and that decision changes everything. Emotional distance has a way of clearing the fog that constant interaction creates. When you're deeply involved with someone, your emotions often blur the truth. You overlook patterns, justify behaviors, and silence your own needs just to keep the connection alive. But the moment you step back, genuinely step back, everything that was confusing suddenly becomes clear. Distance gives you the ability to see without attachment, without pressure, without the emotional noise that kept you blind. It allows you to view the situation from a place of inner stability rather than emotional hunger. When you create emotional distance, You stop reacting and start observing. You're no longer caught in the cycle of explanations, arguments, and expectations. Instead, you begin to see things as they truly are, not as you hoped they would be. You notice what you were giving too much of and what you were receiving too little of. You see where you lowered your standards and where you abandoned parts of yourself. This clarity doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows quietly, day by day, as your emotions settle and your mind regains balance. Distance also brings clarity to the other person. When they have constant access to your energy, your compassion, your understanding, they take it for granted without even realizing it. They assume you will always be there. But the moment you pull back, the dynamic changes. Your absence highlights every moment where they should have shown up, but didn't. Every effort you made becomes visible. Every sacrifice becomes undeniable. Emotional distance removes the veil, not just for you, but for them too. The powerful thing about distance is that it removes performance. When you're close, both people are reacting, defending, explaining, but distance leaves only truth. If someone cares, you'll feel it. If they don't, you'll feel that too. Emotional distance exposes what words have been hiding. It reveals intentions more clearly than conversations ever could. Someone who truly values you will become aware of the shift and respond to it. Someone who doesn't will simply drift further away, and that clarity becomes your freedom. In that space, your intuition becomes louder. You start listening to the voice you ignored before. You realize which emotions were real and which were created out of attachment. You see where you abandoned your boundaries just to keep temporary peace. Emotional distance is not about punishing anyone. It's about reconnecting with yourself. It is a moment of truth where you understand what you want, what you deserve, and what you can no longer tolerate. Clarity comes when you're no longer seeking validation. When you stop trying to fix something alone, you finally see whether it was meant to be fixed. Distance allows your heart to rest and your mind to breathe. It gives you the strength to choose from a place of self-awareness, not emotional dependency. And that clarity becomes the foundation of the next version of you, stronger, wiser, and far more aligned with your own worth. When you stop chasing, something shifts instantly, not just in the dynamic, but in the energy between two people. The moment you pull your attention back, the balance of power changes without a single word being spoken. Most people don't realize how much influence their presence carries until they withdraw it. When you were available, responsive, patient, and emotionally invested, the other person felt secure in your consistency. They knew you would show up even when they didn't. They assumed you would stay even when you were hurting. But the moment you walk away or pull back, that silent certainty vanishes and the dynamic transforms in a way they never saw coming. The power shifts because emotional availability is a form of currency. When you give it freely, it feels abundant. When you withdraw it, the value skyrockets. Suddenly, they recognize what your presence really meant. They feel the absence of your reassurance, your stability, your support. Things they once dismissed now feel magnified. The messages they didn't reply to, the efforts they overlooked, the moments they took for granted, all of it catches up with them. And this shift doesn't happen because you wanted control. It happens because energy never lies. When you stop pouring into someone who isn't pouring back, the imbalance becomes undeniable. This change is unexpected because they didn't believe you would ever step back. They relied on your softness. They relied on your consistency. They relied on the fact that you cared deeply. And people who rely on your emotional presence often underestimate your strength. They mistake your loyalty for weakness, your patience for neediness, and your kindness for dependency. But when you break the pattern, when you show that you can leave the table when respect isn't being served, it shocks them, not because they didn't know you were capable of it, but because they never expected you to choose yourself. The shift in power has nothing to do with ego. It's about self-worth. When you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your strength. You stop negotiating for love and start demanding reciprocity. Suddenly, they are the one wondering, thinking, questioning. They feel the discomfort of uncertainty, something you carried quietly for a long time. This doesn't mean they become powerless. It simply means the dynamic becomes balanced. Because when one person gives too much and the other gives too little, the relationship becomes emotionally uneven. Walking away resets that imbalance. This shift also reveals intentions. Someone who cared but got comfortable will wake up and step up. Someone who never valued you will stay silent. Either way, the truth becomes clear, and the truth is powerful. The unexpected shift in power is not about making anyone chase you. It's about no longer abandoning yourself. It's the moment you stop trying to convince someone of your worth and start embodying it. That is when everything changes, not because you demanded respect, but because you finally gave it to yourself. Distance has a way of revealing truths that are impossible to see when you're constantly involved. When you're always present, always responding, always giving, the other person's intentions can stay hidden behind words, excuses, and gestures that feel genuine but aren't. You get used to the inconsistencies, the small betrayals, the half-hearted efforts, because the closeness masks them. But the moment you step back, even slightly, the veil lifts. Space gives clarity. It exposes patterns that were invisible in the comfort of constant interaction. The actions that seemed accidental, the promises that seemed sincere, the excuses that seemed reasonable, suddenly they are laid bare, unmistakable in their truth. When you create distance, you allow time and perspective to do their work. Without the pressure of your presence, the other person's true priorities emerge. Do they reach out without prompting, or do they remain silent? Do they show effort when they no longer have you immediately available, or do they assume you will wait indefinitely? Space tests the consistency of care, the authenticity of affection, and the sincerity of intentions. Words can lie, gestures can deceive, but absence, even gentle absence, is a natural filter that reveals the heart of someone's character. The most important realization about space is that it is not a punishment. It is not a tactic to manipulate someone into noticing your value. It is a form of self-preservation and self-respect. By creating space, you honor your own boundaries, your own energy, and your own needs. And in doing so, you inevitably illuminate the other person's true colors. Some people will rise to the occasion, showing that their love and respect are genuine. Others will reveal that their interest was conditional, their presence convenient, or their commitment shallow. Either way, space is a mirror reflecting truth that proximity often conceals. Space also allows your own perception to sharpen. When emotions are constantly engaged, it's easy to rationalize behavior, ignore red flags, or convince yourself that intentions are better than actions. Emotional proximity can cloud judgment. By stepping back, you gain emotional distance that allows you to see patterns clearly without bias or desperation. You begin to notice what you tolerated, what you compromised on, and what you accepted because you were too close to see otherwise. This awareness is not about blame. It is about understanding, clarity, and the wisdom to make better decisions. The beauty of space is that it gives both parties the chance to reflect. When someone truly values you, your absence will spark recognition. They will evaluate what they lost or what they took for granted. But even if they do not respond, the truth is still revealed. Intentions were never aligned with actions, and that clarity is invaluable. It saves you from investing further in what is hollow and unworthy, and it guides you toward what is genuine and reciprocal. Space exposes intentions because it removes the distraction of constant presence and forces reality to show itself, leaving no room for illusions. In essence, space is not emptiness. It is truth in motion. It strips away pretenses and uncovers authenticity. It teaches that actions, not words, define intention. And it empowers you to choose relationships where the truth is visible and the intentions are real. Silence is one of the most powerful tools a person can wield, yet it is often underestimated. Most people equate communication with expression. They believe that in order to be heard or understood, they must speak, explain, justify, or defend. But true impact rarely comes from words. It comes from presence, energy, and restraint. When you choose silence over reaction, you create a space where your strength, self-respect, and clarity are visible without a single word being spoken. Silence communicates boundaries, values, and priorities in a way that emotional outbursts or constant explanations never can. When emotions are high, we tend to express them impulsively. Anger, frustration, or even love can push us to act or speak in ways that dilute our message. Yet silence cuts through the noise. It demonstrates control over one's own energy. It shows that you are not dictated by someone else's behavior or mood. You are steady. You are grounded. And that steadiness speaks volumes. When someone is used to eliciting reactions from you, your calm withdrawal unsettles them. It forces them to confront their own actions because your response is no longer available to mask the truth. Silence also allows the other person to reflect. When you stop trying to explain, defend, or chase, they are left with the reality of the situation. They see what they took for granted, what they overlooked, and what they lost. Your absence of reaction highlights patterns they may have ignored. Every word they failed to hear becomes more apparent in your quiet presence. Every effort they neglected becomes undeniable. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing them their own behavior without the distortion of your emotions. Furthermore, silence is a statement of self-respect. It signals that you are not willing to compromise your peace or your dignity for validation. You do not need to argue to prove your worth. You do not need to justify your feelings to be understood. By holding your peace, you communicate that your energy is valuable and that it will not be spent on anyone who does not appreciate it. Silence becomes a form of protection, not of avoidance, but of prioritizing yourself over chaos or drama. Another subtle power of silence is that it evokes curiosity and introspection in others. People are not accustomed to someone who does not react according to expectation. They notice your calmness, your patience, and your consistency. In the absence of your emotions as a tool for engagement, they begin to think, reflect, and sometimes regret. Your silence gives them the opportunity to understand what they lost, and it often motivates them to show the respect and attention that was previously absent. Silence is not passive, it is active presence. It requires confidence, self-awareness, and emotional strength. It teaches that sometimes the most profound statements are made without words. When you speak less, observe more, and maintain your composure, your energy communicates authenticity, self-worth, and clarity in ways that shouting, arguing, or pleading never could. In a world where noise is constant and emotions are overexpressed, silence is revolutionary. It is the language of those who value themselves enough to let their absence, restraint, and quiet dignity speak louder than any emotional display ever could. Letting go is often misunderstood. Many people think it's a sign of defeat, that releasing someone or something means you are weak, that walking away is the same as giving up. But the truth is completely opposite. Letting go is one of the strongest acts a person can take. It requires clarity, courage, and self-respect. It means you have reached a point where you understand your worth and refuse to compromise your peace, even for something or someone you once valued deeply. It takes emotional intelligence to recognize when holding on is doing more harm than good, and strength to act on that realization. The act of letting go is not driven by anger or revenge. It is guided by wisdom. It means you are not clinging to illusions, not trapped in the hope that someone else will change, and not surrendering your mental and emotional stability for temporary comfort. It is a conscious choice to prioritize your well-being over attachment, to honor yourself even when your heart resists. Letting go is proof that you can face discomfort without collapsing, that you can confront uncertainty without desperation, and that you can choose yourself even when it hurts to step away. When someone holds on too tightly, it often comes from fear, fear of loss, fear of being alone, fear of the unknown. But letting go requires the opposite: faith in yourself, confidence in your path, and trust that life will bring what is aligned with your energy. It is a declaration that you will not settle for less than what you deserve. When you release someone who no longer matches your values, who does not reciprocate your effort, or who fails to recognize your worth, you are not losing, you are reclaiming your power. Letting go also demonstrates emotional maturity. It shows that you are capable of seeing reality without bias or wishful thinking. You can observe patterns, understand behaviors, and assess relationships without being ruled by desire alone. This maturity is magnetic. People are drawn to those who can navigate life with clarity and strength, who do not beg for attention, and who do not cling out of insecurity. The power of letting go lies in the message it sends. You are whole without someone else, and you will not sacrifice your peace for temporary connection. Furthermore, letting go often creates the space for better things to enter your life. It is a reset, a clearing away of what no longer serves you. It opens doors to relationships, opportunities, and experiences that are aligned with your values and growth. It teaches patience and trust, showing that true fulfillment comes when you release control and allow life to unfold naturally. Letting go is strength disguised as surrender. It is not an act of weakness, but a testament to self-awareness, courage, and dignity. It is the quiet power of someone who knows that they cannot force respect, love, or attention, and instead chooses themselves. In the end, those who can let go with grace and clarity are the ones who carry the deepest influence, the strongest energy, and the unshakable confidence that comes from valuing oneself above all else. There is a subtle truth in relationships that most people only understand when it's too late. Not everyone loves like you do. When you give with honesty, patience, and consistency, you set a standard that is rare. Your love is not reckless, but it is deep. It is not conditional on convenience, but it is unwavering in its essence. And the moment you stop giving that energy freely, the absence creates a space where the other person begins to feel the weight of what they had and what they lost. She returns not because she manipulated you or because you chased her, but because she finally recognizes the depth, the rarity, and the authenticity of your love. When someone has been used to your constant presence, they often take it for granted. They forget the effort you poured into the relationship, the patience you exercised, and the emotional labor you carried silently. Your kindness, your understanding, and your loyalty become invisible because they are habitual. But when you withdraw, even just slightly, that invisibility vanishes. Your absence becomes a mirror reflecting the value they overlooked. Suddenly, every act of love you once showed feels heavier in its absence, and realization begins. The key lies in the difference between ordinary affection and extraordinary care. Many people experience attention, flattery, or temporary validation, but few encounter someone who loves with consistency, thoughtfulness, and unwavering commitment. That type of love cannot be replaced easily, and the moment they are faced with it missing, it highlights a truth that cannot be ignored. They see the empty spaces where you once filled the room with your presence, the gaps where your understanding bridged their insecurities, and the quiet ways you supported them without asking for anything in return. Recognition comes slowly, but it comes all the same. She returns because she understands that true love is not about constant pursuit or emotional manipulation. It is about stability, respect, and presence, qualities that are rare and invaluable. When she experiences the world without you, she realizes the energy, the care, and the commitment you brought into her life. She realizes that most relationships are fleeting, conditional, or transactional, and that what you offered was profound in its authenticity. The realization is powerful because it is not learned through words alone. It is felt in absence, in reflection, and in comparison. This return is not always immediate, and it is not always guaranteed, but it is the natural outcome of a love that is genuine and rare. You do not have to chase it or plead for recognition. Simply being who you are, holding your standards, and refusing to settle for less creates the contrast necessary for her to see what she truly had. And when she does, she is drawn back, not out of fear, guilt, or convenience, but because she now understands the unmatched value of someone who loves fully, consistently, and without compromise. In essence, she returns when she realizes that not everyone offers the depth of care, patience, and understanding that you do. Your love becomes irreplaceable because it is rare, authentic, and selfless in a way few people experience. And in that realization, she sees the truth that proximity often masked, that the love you gave was not just affection, but a standard of devotion and respect that she cannot easily forget. When you walk away, something shifts that words can never replicate. Presence over time can dull perception. She grows accustomed to your efforts, your patience, your understanding, and your love. Your consistency becomes background noise, so much a part of her daily life that she no longer sees the value in it. But the moment you step away, even briefly, a stark contrast emerges, a contrast she never truly noticed before. The absence of your presence, energy, and attention highlights everything she took for granted, and suddenly the comfort she once felt turns into awareness. Walking away is not about punishment or manipulation. It is about creating clarity. It allows her to experience life without the stability, respect, and affection you brought into it. In that space, she begins to recognize what was missing when she treated your presence as guaranteed. The contrast is not fabricated. It is simply the natural result of her finally living without what she had. The quiet moments without your support, the absence of your guidance, and the lack of your attention force her to confront the reality she ignored while you were there. There is an undeniable power in contrast. When someone is constantly present, their value becomes invisible because familiarity breeds complacency. Your absence, however, draws attention to the unique qualities she had grown blind to. She remembers the way you listened without judgment, the patience you displayed when she was difficult, the unwavering support you provided, and the calm strength you carried. All the small gestures that once seemed ordinary now appear extraordinary because she experiences life without them. The contrast is sharp, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. Walking away also shifts perspective. From a distance, she can see the patterns she overlooked when you were close. She notices moments where she dismissed your efforts, took your loyalty for granted, or failed to match your energy. The space you create allows her to evaluate not just what you did for her, but what you represented: stability, consistency, emotional intelligence, and self-respect. The contrast between her current reality and what you offered becomes undeniable, forcing recognition. This contrast teaches a valuable lesson. Love, care, and respect are not infinite resources that can be taken for granted. When you walk away, you show that your presence is not a given, but a choice. And by choosing yourself over tolerating mistreatment or indifference, you create a reality where she cannot ignore your worth. It is not about making her chase you. It is about letting life naturally reveal what she lost. Walking away illuminates what proximity once hid. It reveals patterns, exposes truths, and highlights the depth of your value. The contrast she experiences without you is not fabricated. It is a reflection of reality she chose to overlook when you were always there. In that absence, she finally sees the difference between what she settled for and what she had. And it is in this revelation that the power of walking away becomes undeniable. The contrast you create is unforgettable, and it changes the way she perceives you and perhaps herself forever. In the end, the reason she comes back to the man who walks away first is simple yet profound. It is in his absence that she truly sees his value. Walking away is not about rejection, punishment, or ego. It is about self-respect, clarity, and strength. It creates space for reflection, reveals true intentions, and highlights the depth of a love that is rare and authentic. His silence, his distance, and his choice to prioritize himself over attachment shift the dynamic in ways that words never could. She returns not because she is forced, but because she finally recognizes the irreplaceable presence, patience, and devotion he offered, a standard few can match. Walking away is not losing. It is showing that real worth is felt most profoundly when it is absent, and in that absence, the truth becomes undeniable.